get them off, but luckily I'm alright with this one. Now, the fun part. See the size of that? God, it's busy out there today, plod and everything. Reasonable size bar, 4 foot maybe. Oh dear. Yeah, and that's without the nut on the end. So, that'll do for that. Don't like hard work. You'll remember I rattled on about the ultra fine cutting discs. These are Wix's special, and they're that thin you can bend them. Wonderful little things. They don't last very long, and do not do this without goggles on. I'm going to cheat. I'm going to hide my head behind the drum, which is obviously not correct health and safety procedure, and I wouldn't risk my eyes normally for anything or anyone. I don't know where the goggles are. Right, come have a look, I won't turn it on yet. 4.5 inch disc, 115mm, ultra thin, it's about a millimetre. And what we're going to do is, we're going to run the disc straight up the back there. I'm going to go around the other side and we're going to run the disc straight up the back there. There's one other little detail I wanted to show you. And I ain't got it ready, so I'll be back in a second. Right, I've got what I want. A sacrificial screwdriver end. Can be anything you want. It can be a nail if you like, it's a wedge. You want to get the disc up there, which is very narrow. Small gap. So all we're going to do is just give ourselves an extra bit of room by tapping that in the gap, and that will push the arm over that way as far as it goes and push the bracket this way a bit. Right, I'm not allowed to do any grinding without my face mask on, so I found a rotten old one. So cutting disc goes right up there between the two. You can feel it touch on the finger. Got to be very careful with these discs. And here we go. Right, what was that, 30 seconds? Now comes the bar. I've wound that big 30mm nut off to the end so it's just finger tight. Because obviously we don't want to, if you are putting these ones back in, we're changing the arms, but you can put the new bushes on these arms. I already cut that side before we came back on camera, just so I knew it was going to go okay. And lovely. Ta-da! Right, before we worry about the arms, you can see this now, where the grinder's been cut up. I've just polished the edge of the bracket, which is nothing, and now we can go out with the bolt head, and that bit of thread has come out. Metal sleeve. Tell you what, I'll show you it on the new one. I'll get ready, back in a sec. Right, okay. Here's a new crank arms, as you can see, it's bent. Smart looking bit of kit. It's going to look fabulous, this car, when it's done. Right, now, 1/2 of a new poly bush for the rear, and a 2nd half. So we start with this end. It's so easy, it's just painful, really. What I'm going to do is, so we don't have the same problem ever again, drown all the bushes in the copper grease, and this is the problem we had a minute ago. You can imagine that. 10 years of being welded in there, rusting in there, that ain't coming out. And if you can get one out that's rusted in there, then well done. Because I weren't going to try. Not for the sake of £2 worth of new bolts. Right, okay, so we don't want anything to stick again. Grease the sleeve up. Push that, pop that in the hole. Make sure you get the right sleeve for the job. If you bought loads of kits and that, like I have, then there's varying sizes and thicknesses. Pinch it up like that. Now this bolt, I do not want that ever to stick in there again, so I'm going to absolutely brown it in copper grease. I'm going to stick a dollop in the end, and before we even put it in the car, I'm going to run it in and round, back out again. Because it's all nice and new, all we got to do is wipe all the wipe its mouth dry when it's done. Right, so that's that ready to go. Take that bolt out, put that up there. Right, polybush on the outside, front end. Nice big washer, already drowned with copper grease. And one bush, I've already pushed the sleeve in. There's the other one. Well, that's what it's like. Over the top. And triangular plate where your 3 bolts go through. Firmly over that. A little bit in the middle, slightly proud so it fits in the hole. It's a little bit tight to get over that sleeve. And then you've got a nice big washer on the top. And then your big nut. So, you can pre-assemble it. You can pre-assemble it before you put it up in the car. So I'll tell you what, I think we're actually ready to go, so I shall just slip it straight in. Super vicar. Right. In it goes that end. Whole lot just pushes through the hole. The reason you don't tighten the big bolt up is so you can so you've got a little bit of play and you can twist the thing. Push that up. Go on, you're right there. Okay. Use a little screwdriver in to put in and just leave that bar forward a bit, and then it'll go in. Beautiful, so nut on the end, and then I've got nice 3 new nuts and bolts here, copper grease them up, and 1, 2, 3, and there's the 3 nuts. Well, there wasn't 3 nuts. Right, so that's nice and simple. Get your nuts started on all of them, including especially the top one, because it's furthest away at the top, biggest gap up there, so the bolts are just long enough that I've bought. Buy new bolts, they don't come in the kit, but 3 new bolts from the local car spare shop. Save you a lot of bother. Right, okay, bubba, job done. Yeah. You're supposed to tighten the bolts up fully with the weight of the vehicle resting on the wheels, but it's not really going to make that much of a difference. There's that much grease in there, everything will be allowed to slip around where it wants to sit anyway. Right, that looks quite smart, that. Cranked arms, and the reason for the cranked arms, if you come behind me, a quick explanation of that. Where we've lifted it up 2 inches, these arms are straight, the standard ride height ones. So where the back axle is now 2 inches further away from the chassis, you would be pinching the bushes up, facing the arm, facing the chassis. So these ones just allow the bushes to stay in the position that they would be normally. Right, okay, that's that. I'll bolt them all up and then we'll come back and have a look at pushing the old bushes out of this nasty thing. Better set. Right, okay, let's have a look at the, if you're using your old arms, what you can do, and how to change these bushes. I have to apologise for the mess on the bench. That would be a Trevor and Dean. They will be having words when I see them next. Right, okay. Yep, big nut off the front, smaller washer. Have one of them big ones, I'll keep all these. Now, let's have a look. Looks like they're already poly bushes actually. Let's see if that comes off. Yeah. Oh, considering how recent that looks actually, it's already starting to just get a little bit stuck on there. So this is all, God, it's not going to come off. I have to push the sleeve out in the middle, but that'll all, that's all separate, all savable. Right, this end, to make the job easier, I'm going to shave the top of the bush off so it's flush with the metal. Every little helps and all that. Mind your fingers when you're doing it. That's it. Drown it in WD-40. Right, take a step back. Now you can need a vise for this, or you can get a blowtorch and just melt them out. Probably won't take that much to melt them out, but messy, nasty, smelly job. But then there's cars, isn't it? So we'll see. Now, I want that out like that. I think that's just fell out of the yep. Just fell out of the very end travel on the vise. Don't do it on tape, be a good boy. Well, I had to cut there because I threw my teddies out of the pram. It was a two-man job just to make that a little bit easier, because this vise was right at the end of its travel, and trying to balance that, get that all pinched up where I wanted it so I could demonstrate it, wasn't going my way. Right, okay, big socket over the back to push the bush into, or the sleeve into, and little socket on the cut off, ruined end of bolt and sleeve, and then wind at your leisure. Plenty of WD-40. Oh, and if you make sure the socket is smaller than the overall diameter of the bolt, then if you do have to wind it all the way in, like that, to get it out the other end, then you don't have to reverse psychology it to get the socket back out. Come on. I think we're due for a few upgrades here, like a new vise, although saying that, it does what it says on the tin. Lovely, that's it. Now, basically, I'll just do the same now that's out, with a slightly bigger socket. I'll tell you what, I'll get it set up and come back, because I'm going to need another pair of hands back set. Okay, come have a look, ready to go again. Bigger socket. One that actually fits around the nylon bush this side, this time, into the same socket, and that's it. Bit of weddy, loads of WD-40, and there you go. Job's a good one. Right, okay, before we move on to the front, here's one I prepared earlier. If you're using your old ones, give them a bit of a sandpaper and hit them with the black smooth right. They look well smart. Paint it before you put the bushes in, and then you've got a little bit of contrast in your colours when you put it back together. Right, that's that. The bushes going in are, obviously, you've seen already, they're in two halves, and the front one's just reassembled. Right, let's move on to the next bit. Back in a sec. Right, next job at the back end. Rear anti-roll bar bushes, so and we'll look at the drop links as well. Easy job. Now if the car's level i.e. it's sitting on the ground or up on ramps, you can do it without taking the wheels off even. If you twist it, that's what the anti-roll bar does. Stops the axle twisting in relation to the body, so it keeps it flatter on the ground. 24mm or 11, 15, 16 nut and bolt there. And already loosened that one. It wasn't too drastic. Just get him out. Come on, be good. Now I didn't get any bolts for the rear, but would have been nice to. Never mind. One thing at a time. Can always replace them later. But if you know you're doing the job, right, to replace your drop link, split pin, nut, undo the big bolt we've just done. That's it, off, and there's no tension in there. Loosen the brackets at the back so they can hang down. Give you a little bit of room to manoeuvre. And there's 4 bolts, 1/2 inch, 13mm, roughly. Pop the nut and bolt out, and if you do one side at a time, it shouldn't come down and clonk you on the head. Right, this is hopefully easy. I haven't pulled the bracket off or anything, but there you go. Oh, super. That really was easy. Right, so that easy, I'm not even going to bother showing the whole thing. You can see how it works. Old bush, new bush, and the new strap goes over the top, and I expect that's going to be fun to push in. Alright, there you go, different type of bush, so make sure you get the right one. Ooh, helicopter. Right, okay, can't fit them because they're not going to sit in the bush properly, in the bracket properly, unfortunately. Never mind, it's one of them things. Should check that, but I will fit the bottom bushes. Let's use our chisel bit. Have a look. Easy job. Out come the old ones. Excuse me. In go the new bushes. Plenty of copper grease around them, as we did on the others. Oh, must be hay fever already. Lovely. 1, 2, super. And then lots of copper slip on the bolt. Now that is actually a big washer that stuck to the bolt, and there was one missing, which I knew there was, so I've got a new one to go on the inside. I'll go there. Don't push it all the way through because you need to get your idiot. I only took it out a second ago. I forgot what I'm doing already. Good, ain't it? Must be overexcitement to get it done. A little bit of brute force and ignorance, and there you go. And we put our big lock nut back on the back. Right, that's that, lovely. So, unfortunately, I can't put those bushes in. So I'll stick that back together and move on to the next bit. Back in a sec. Right, okay, next job. We're going to have a look at the front radius arms, back down the front. And poly bushes, and caster correction bushes, cranked arms, the lot. So, we've got to start getting it apart, of course. Now, I've already showed you how to take this off earlier. I've got a little bracket that's there so you can clear that. We're using that again, so we'll stick the nut back on so we don't lose it. Ta-da. Now we can see what we're doing. 1, 2 big bolts and big 30mm nut back here. So, rather than cover the same jobs again and again and again, that's a 30mm nut. Just get on it with a big bar, soak it up and crack it off and wind it back to a point where it's reasonably loose to undo, as in you're not going to have to clamp this up to get it off, because while these bolts are in, that arm's stopped from turning against you, because I stripped a Discovery the other day and it took 2 of us on that bolt with a 3-foot long bar, jumping up and down it like monkeys. But it came off in the end. Anyway, right, so snip round the front. As before, axle stands underneath his chassis, so it's safe. And take the weight of the front. I'm using the transmission jack, obviously, because we're up in the air as usual. Take the weight. Not because it's going to go anywhere, just to take a little bit of pressure off the bolts to make it easier to get them out. What do I do with my bits and bobs? Right, yeah, that'll do. I've already undone both nuts, because you've seen what we do on the back if it gets if it's too tight. And this one, I noticed, was going to come out like a good little boy. So result. Lovely. That don't happen very often. Right, now the back one, I have to say that I've already loosened that off. I've had the bar in there. I'll show you what I did, because you might just have better luck than me. I've had the bar in there, levering against the nut, the big bar on the back, and I've tried twisting it and pushing it back through the hole at the same time, and basically that's a no-no. So that's going to be almost definitely stuck on the stuck in the sleeve like the other one was. So I'm going to chop it. So get the grinder, different size chisel for the front to wedge in there. Let's pull the arm apart. There we go. Where are we? Have a quick look. Chisel in the top. Nice big gap through there now. And that's it, same as the back really. You can get the grinder in like that. Try not to damage your arm. Just get it up to the bolt head. I can actually get the disc all the way up to the bolt head actually, that's nice. And then same for the reverse. And I'll come back when I've chopped it off, see what happens. Back in a sec. Right, I've chopped through them bolts, same as the back one, so I haven't pulled it out yet. And just a bit of warning. The shock absorber stops the axle coming down too far, but if you're undoing them bolts, just make sure your whole arm's not going to come down on you. I like those grinding discs. Very good. Spend a few moments thinking about what can go wrong, because sometimes it does go wrong, or it will go wrong. Lovely. Right, okay. So, one side at a time again. Okay, that's going to come free. Like that. Lovely. Right, there's quite a lot of tension and pressure and everything there, because remember we said the cranked arms take the pressure off the bushes. Well, at this end, because the arms aren't cranked, you've got a lot of bush being squashed there and a lot at the top, so it's trying to push the arm back up. So all I'm going to do, now I know that's all free, is just unwind that bush, unwind that nut. It'll gradually release the tension off, and then we'll just jiggle it out, and hopefully it'll come down without giving us a clump on the noggin. So, I'll unwind it and take the nut off, and we'll come back to pull it off. Back a sec. Right, there's the bush, big washer, and nut off the back end. So that wasn't too difficult. You want it off with a bar. Now just want the bar up there. Make sure it's loose, yep. And carry on yoinking this down. Let's get it down from the front. Right, that's that out. Okay. Shock absorber stopping the axle from coming down too far, so let's see. There we go. One radius arm. And there again is those sleeves. Haven't been greased up on the way in, so they actually look like poly bushes already, so never mind. Right, that's that off. Bit of movement there, hopefully it'll be enough to help us get it back on. That's the MOT valve, so obviously the brake hoses are not any good on full load with your 2-inch lift. Fail and dangerous. Right, okay. Work out what I'm doing next. I'll back a sec. Right, worked out what I'm doing next. Thought I'd better give you a full story. Obviously, doing a Land Rover is a very personal choice, really, whatever you want to do. Now, I've got cranked arms for the front, which we'll have a look at close up in a minute. And my front axle has got the narrow arms. Now I was trying to find a nice little quick bit of information on the internet about the diameter of the narrow arms. Now, I can find out the diameter of the wide arms, which is 44 millimetres. Yep, 44 millimetres. New ones, 45 millimetres. Now, the old narrow arms, just under 40 millimetres, so yeah, that would be why the big arms, the new cranked arms, won't fit in the old casing. It goes in there, so there's not going to be enough room for it. Right, so because it's a personal choice, this one, I'm going to show on film and demonstrate what I'm going to do. I'm going to get my grinder and I'm going to go chop, 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 chop. Chop the bolts through, because I've got new bolts, new bushes, so I don't want them, I just want them off with minimal aggro. The old arms, the old wide arms, we're going to fit caster corrected bushes in, so you can see how to do that. That's easy. For now, we'll talk about putting the casing on. Now, so I don't have to film the whole lot, because we've got to squeeze this all into 2.5 hours. I'm going to take these 2 bolts off, the spring clamp bolts, undo the bottom shock absorber bolt, 2 spring clamp bolts, bottom shock absorber bolt, and don't forget that is what's holding the axle up, especially now we've got one of the arms missing. Because I'm not using this old casing, I'm not going to bother cutting these 2 bolts. I'm just going to undo the big bolt at the back and then get some help in and lower it down. We have to take the prop shaft off, Randy, if you come and have a look. It's not really suspension, but I'm going to give you the clue anyway, because anybody wants to change their front casing. 4 bolts on the prop shaft, lovely, that comes off, make sure you don't get clunks on the head by it. And then you've got a series of bolts around the diff casing, lovely, undo all them, but the diff won't come out until you undo, yeah, come around the back. You see me took the caliper off, 2 bolts on the back of the caliper, 2 bolts on the top of the swivel housing, that's all on the service DVD. Caliper off, tie the caliper up, put the bolts back into the swivel housing so that all stays connected and the oil doesn't pour out the bottom where it's been slackened off. And then, I will have a bit of this on film, but I want to get it all to the stage of being pulled apart, so I can just show it quickly. This series of bolts, they're all 12-point bolts, 12 hex or 6 hex socket or spanner won't get on. Probably have to do them with a spanner anyway because of the clearance between them and the swivel housing. So, got to undo that series of bolts there, because then the drive shaft that goes into the diff, which is what's locking the diff in, will come out as one hub assembly complete. So it's pretty much like a big Meccano set. It's actually quite doable. Probably doable in a day, especially if you've got help couple of you, 2 or 3 of you, a side each on the spanners, plus for taking the weight achievable. And if you take, before you take the arms off, if you take the hubs off, if you're swapping your casing, this is, take your hubs off, take your diff out, your prop off, diff out, you've pretty much just got the light axle casing. If you have a look down here, it's not one finger, it's not, and that's where the arm's connected, it's not particularly difficult to manhandle about. So, I've got a lot of nuts and bolts to undo in front of me.